Yeah.
Hello, ladies. Vanessa here from Cultivate. I'm so excited tonight. We have Dr. Scott with us, who is the doctor that helped us to formulate the Rhythm and Sync formula. We've had a lot of questions that have been emailing in, a lot of testimonies. We're going to talk about all of that tonight and open a live question and answer at the end of this. And so I'm really looking forward to getting those questions up for Dr. Scott to answer. He is an Ayurvedic doctor who's been doing this for, goodness, Scott, how long have you been doing this for?
Oh, a long time, probably over 30 years. So,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
it's been fun.
Yes. And so, can you, not everyone's familiar with the term Ayurvedic or Ayurveda. Can you explain what Ayurvedic medicine is?
Sure, sure. So, it's traditional medicine. So, there's a lot of traditional medicine in the world. Any place that you have indigenous populations, like even uh, Native Americans, have their own medicine. Because if you live in any area for long enough, especially if it's thousands of years, you tend to develop your own medical system. And then you tend to use the things that are, indigenous to your area, like the leaves and roots and plants and stuff. So if you and I had 10,000 years to stay in one place and just go in the forest and try things out, experiment, see what would work, we could probably develop our own traditional medicine. But it's already been done in countries like China, Chinese, and Ayurvedic medicine, which is probably the oldest medicine in the world, connected to India and written in a language that's the oldest language in the world, which is known as Sanskrit language. And so they still have the texts that are many thousands of years old, and nothing's really changed. And what I like about traditional medicine is that it's not an experiment. We know the effects, and we know that they'll work. The formulas work for people, and so we're not just kind of like throwing things together and experimenting on a population. It has to do with known quantities and things that are safe, that have known to be safe for many years. So. In a nutshell, that's it. If you look at it anthropologically, it's kind of interesting because if you trace back, I traced the history when I was first studying, like what traditional medicine, I knew I wanted that, but which one? So I said, let's go to the mother, the fountainhead of all the traditional medicines and see where that is. So if you trace back Mideastern medicine, Unani, and even Hippocrates, the ancient Greek physician who actually today medical doctors when they're through with their exams and school and so on, they become physicians, medical physicians. They take a Hippocratic oath. So that goes back to Hippocrates in the Mideast and ancient Greece, and then all of the ancient Arabia and all of that, and that then in turn goes back to Ayurveda. There's very similar things in there. They call them the humors, but in Ayurveda it's known as elements. And then in Chinese medicine, same thing. They used to send their people from China over into India to study, over 5,000 years ago. And then those things changed a little bit because when you take things back to another for additional thousands of years, they tend to change over time. But Ayurveda's remained the same, and it's kind of like the mother. And you can even trace our Western medicine through Hippocrates back to Ayurvedic medicine. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So the uh, the main reason I'm sure we're going to have a lot of talks over the years of the supplements we're going to be doing together, but Rhythm and Sync is our first supplement. And I just kind of titled this, Are Your Hormones Driving You Crazy? how to, you know, get those crazy hormones to stop driving you crazy. I think there's so many women that know their bodies are changing or are dealing with certain certain conditions, whether they're cysts, not being able to get pregnant, all of those, you know, hormonal things, starting to go into menopause, premenopause, most postmenopause. And so I want to talk tonight about all of those different things. And then again, I'm going to have a live question and answer. We'll get to that point after we discuss the formula a little more. And you guys can ask Dr. Treadway, Dr. Scott, anything, you know, that you're going through or any questions you have about the Rhythm and Sync formula. But I guess I wanted to start with how the formula is made, what herbs are in it, and what is different with our formula is the Pure Tab. So no one's really talking about Pure Tab formulas and wild crafted herbs. So would you please explain to our audience, our wonderful ladies that are joining us tonight, a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I'm going to be glad to. I just wanted to say in the beginning, you know, we have, over the years especially, we kind of live in an estrogenic society. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is sort of the time, as they say. So it's a wonderful thing in that sense. But there's a lot of things that we probably should go over. Maybe I'll just address these specific questions you have right now, and then we can go back and talk about also a little bit about diet, just to give some free information on what would be good in terms to help avoid this kind of ocean of estrogen that we're living in, that has to do with a lot of chemicals and things that are around us. Anyway, as you say, I think this is a great formula to begin with. Yeah, the Rhythm and Sync basically is a traditional or a Vedic formula for women, and it doesn't matter if you're premenopausal or menopausal. It's going to help balance hormones from a traditional point of view, and we have some really interesting ingredients in there. One of the main ones is called shatavari, or asparagus racemosus. It's not the same as like asparagus that you eat normally in a vegetable dish, but it's a root. And then there's another one that everybody's probably heard of, ashwagandha. And this is in combination with some other herbs like licorice. And all together, they create a synergy that helps to balance hormones, or helps to support healthy hormonal balance in women. So this has been known for a long time, and it works usually with everybody. And we have a Pure Tab process, you know, that we use with Rhythm and Sync. Now, probably a lot of people don't know this, but there's just a lot of junk in food supplements out there. So our approach has been to, and working with you and other people who are concerned about the purity of their supplements, that, you know, that we have something that we know is all naturally occurring, meaning that the herbs themselves are non-GMO. They're coming from either wild-crafted and or organic sources. And also that when we make the tablet itself, that we're doing it in a way that provides sort of the original experience that you should have with a supplement. Because let's say, you know, hundreds of years ago, when somebody would make a supplement, they would take, you know, like a decoction of something, let's say ashwagandha root or whatever, and boil it, and then, you know, put it through a sieve. This is to make an extract, and we are using extracts in your formulation. So this is a good example. So then they would just keep doing that, and then boil it down, let it dry out into a powder, and then roll it with their fingers, so that those were pills. So we had these kind of like herbal pills, and that was our traditional medicine. But the good thing about that over a capsule, in my opinion, is that the problem with capsules is sometimes they don't even digest correctly. It depends on how strong a person's digestion is. And there's also another benefit, which is when you take a pill or it's mass production. So we're talking about tablets, but we're doing the mass production in the traditional way, in the sense that we're not using any excipients. So excipients are these things that are used to make a tablet hard and or compress easier. It's mainly for the convenience of the manufacturer. So we make it inconvenient for ourselves as a manufacturer of your product, but that's okay, because we're passing on that benefit of having no synthetic excipients like magnesium stearate and others that are really just toxic. And a lot of people are very sensitive to those things. They don't even realize it. They could take a really good supplement, and then if you have some toxic excipients in there, it basically negates whatever benefit you're trying to get, because it's full. It's very toxic to the system.
For sure. So I do just want to challenge people, because I have been talking about this a little bit. Magnesium stearate, is a debatable ingredient, but I want to challenge people to look at their supplements and see how many of them have magnesium stearate. Now, Dr. Scott, that affects your digestion, and what other elements of that, like your colon health? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it can affect all things, especially your digestion. And the main thing that I was going to say about these supplements that we make with what we call the pure tab method for you is that as soon as they hit the tongue, they start to have the effect. You actually do want to taste the medicine a little bit, because we have 6 different tastes: salty, sweet, astringent, and so on. And that actually helps. It's part of the Ayurvedic treatment to have a little bit of taste. Not that you have to chew it or anything, because sometimes they're just, they're not, it's not candy. It does what it's supposed to do. So you have the taste aspect there that's actually helping to balance the system, and in this case, balance the hormonal system right from the get-go, as soon as it hits the tongue. And then you swallow it, and the digestion process actually begins from the tip of the tongue. It doesn't begin, where capsules dissolve in the stomach or in the small intestine, which is what happens with a lot of capsules. They don't even dissolve until they're at least in the stomach area. So this way you get full digestion of the medicine. And also, as you were saying, things like magnesium stearate, they just interfere with your digestion. They used to make magnesium stearate with bovine. It was cow bone, basically, and the marrow itself is called tallow, and they made these things with tallow. I think they stopped making it with tallow some years back, but in order to replace that, they had to use hydrogenated oils and other things. So there's all kinds. Yeah. There's all kinds. It just kind of defeats the purpose. If you're trying to create balance and it's imbalancing you, that doesn't work. Right. So that's the reason. I understand people like vegetable caps, and sometimes you need a vegetable cap for whatever reason. But really, I like the traditional approach of getting the benefit of full digestion and so on by having, just like they used to make it, basically make these little pills that they rolled, from the decoctions that they made and the powders that they made and in the formulation. So we're trying to kind of like bring full circle back to traditional medicine these benefits, and so that's
Right.
you know,
And we're spending all this money on supplements, and then for them to have these ingredients, and we look at it and it's like we don't really, pay attention to it, but or we don't know what it is, but we see the main ingredients on there are like, ooh, ashwagandha, but it's, coated in magnesium stearate, and the absorption, isn't there. So you're spending all this money and not even getting the full benefit, if not digestion issues, along with what other issues that you're taking the supplements for.
Yeah.
So our, so our wild crafted herbs. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the major points that we try to make, as far as providing the herbs that we provided, the wildcrafted herbs. So the way that a lot of those are done is they have these huge forests, especially they say in some place like India. Now, not everything comes from India. We do have other formulas where we have sort of an eclectic supply of herbs from around the world, but talking about Ayurvedic herbs now, and this formula in particular, which is mainly from herbs that come from India, they have these huge forests. In India, they're gigantic. I mean, in the central India and northern India, this and place, and so people can get licenses to go out and pick the herbs out of these forests. So that's what they do. That's how they wildcraft. They go out, with like giant baskets or thrown over their back or whatever. And their job is to go out and maybe pick a certain herb or several kinds of herbs. And so they pick them right out of the jungle. I mean, it's just like by default, it's organic. I mean, it has to be organic because these forests are pristine. They have waterfalls and they have streams, and they're quite beautiful, and they can be dangerous too. So it's good to go in a group or something.
Right.
But that's how they get the wildcrafted herbs, especially out of India. And they go to places in like Chitrakoot, which is a gorgeous place in northern India. It's kind of like it looks like the Garden of Eden, but it goes on for hundreds of square miles. And so a lot of that comes from Chitrakoot, some of the herbs and so on. So that's how it's done.
That's awesome. Awesome. It is. So then I guess now that we're talking about the herbs, go into, and we've already talked about the two main herbs, but what the type of herbs, the adaptogenic, can you explain how adaptogenic herbs work and why they're so powerful and help us?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, adaptogenic herbs like for example, shatavari is one of them, but also ashwagandha. So just they have a quality of strengthening the immune system, just in sort of in general. So you talk about adaptogenic herbs, you're talking about strengthening your immune system in general. Also, in this case, you're strengthening your hormonal system.
Right.
Sort of in general. So it's kind of like a panacea. So adaptogenic herbs are really good for strengthening, for energy in terms of balancing also, but I would say especially in terms of energy and stamina and just general kind of panacea type strengthening. Yeah.
So is it fair to say an adaptogenic herb would be something like, say for me, I struggle with estrogen dominance, right? So I need to balance, like decrease my estrogen and, have my progesterone levels increase. Would you say for someone that has the opposite problem, like an adaptogenic herb kind of, no matter what your symptoms are or what, your issues are, that adaptogenic herbs will do this, you know, whatever that person needs, it will bring into balance. Where like
Yes.
this person, you know, doesn't have that same issue. Okay, so is rhythm and sync for them also? Could you?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
So what's happening is you're helping the self-healing process because really, I mean, we're applying herbs and we're applying diet and so on to improve our health. But the real, purveyor of health is is the human body. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable if you think about all the systems that are going on. We're not even aware of them. You know, we're not normally aware of our breathing or our blood circulating through our veins and all these things. And that's the way it's supposed to be. A lot of these things are autonomous systems that are going on. I mean, it's just unbelievable what happens in the human body. But yes, the answer is that we heal ourselves. And so if we provide ourselves with these like good building blocks and in terms of panaceas and good hormonal balancing herbs, then the body does the rest of it. So the endocrine system starts to take over, and when it's kind of like nourishing your endocrine system, you might say. You know, your pineal gland and your thalamus and pituitary gland and your adrenals and all of that is nourished by this formula. So all the hormonal centers, which are the glandular centers in the body, are being nourished by this formula. And that nourishment allows these glandular systems to function optimally and to adjust according to whatever you need. If you have, if your adrenals aren't working correctly because you're feeling lack of energy, then if you're taking this formula with ashwagandha, that's going to support the adrenal glands. There's no doubt about it. And so you'll feel more energetic. If you're too energetic, then the shatavari would tend to kind of calm you down. And there's some other herbs in there as well, like the licorice and so on. And that would sort of mellow you out. So yes, the body's going to take whatever it needs. This happens with all nutrients. In fact, even if you take a vitamin C type, I'm talking about natural vitamin C, not a synthetic, but a natural vitamin C, the body will take what it needs and get rid of the rest. So it's like, what is the optimal dose? Well, we say take 3 tablets daily of this product, right? But we don't know. It's impossible to find out the exact optimal dose for any person because we're all different. We all have different body types. We're all born with slightly different DNA. So we require, a certain amount of this and a certain amount of that. But if we just make it available, then the body uptakes that nutrient, uses it properly, and puts us into balance. So that's what we're doing. We're just making those nutrients available. And whatever gets eliminated, gets eliminated. It's the way it's supposed to be. And the body has this intelligence that even though we, I love technology and so on, but, over the years, after 40 years in studying, medical systems and so on, and, microbiology and all of that, what I see is that the intelligence of nature is just beyond our intellect. It's way beyond our intellect. Right. There's no way that we can sort of grasp it, although we can see different things and so on, and we can use systems that work. So on a practical level, yeah, we have a lot of information that we can use that really works well. We can make ourselves optimally well, and that's what we should do because how else can we be happy if we're not healthy? We can't evolve and be happy if we're not healthy. That's sort of like the basic things, right?
Right.
So, but the body's intelligent and it takes care of the dosages itself.
So I've been taking the Rhythm and Sync consecutively for 6 months. I had some blood testing in April of this past year. And then I retested in November because my thyroid levels were super slow. So what is that? Hypothyroidism. And just was eating my clean, raw food, vegan diet. But still, I felt like I was swelling up like a balloon, you know? And so I'm like, okay, something's off here. And I got my blood tested again. I would say, what was it, 3 to 4 weeks ago? And my thyroid levels are completely back to normal. And now we're kind of focusing on my liver and estrogen dominance. So I guess I want to get into some of the questions that I've been getting by email. And then again, I have it posted up on the screen. Ladies, if you have questions for Dr. Scott, please post them, and I'll start posting them for him to answer. But I guess with estrogen dominance, and being premenopausal, can you explain how the Rhythm and Sync can help, how those specific herbs can come and help bring balance to the body?
Yeah, exactly. So again, by offering the nutrients to the body and to the glandular system, then we allow the body to take it over to create the balance. You know, what you're saying also kind of like an inner to talk a little bit about the foods and so on that we eat.
Yes, please do.
You know, yeah, I mean, because we're saying it, and it's true that we do live in an estrogenic kind of environment, much more than it was, say, 25 years ago, probably. I would say much more, even just in the last 10, 15 years. So one of the things I wanted to mention is the foods in the environment. That has a lot to do with it. So if you're a vegetarian, sometimes you want to eat soy things, but if you can eat other things like that are not soy, that would be good.
Right.
That would be good. Right. So especially if you're having some kind of an imbalance in hormones, I would say that soy is really, really high in estrogen. Things like wheat, corn, and barley, meats of different kinds, like potato chips. Shellfish is another thing for people that eat that. Shellfish is high in estrogenic compounds. Would you call
those xenoestrogens?
Yeah, they're xenoestrogens along with precursors to estrogens, that kind of thing. Yeah, like xenoestrogens.
Okay.
Right. And of course, if you're going to have bottled water, you got to watch out for the plastic and PAs and all that. That's all estrogenic. And in the environment, you have things like it's hard to get away from it in your environment sometimes because if you have a synthetic carpet, that's outgassing. If you have things like pressed wood, you can't always check for that either. But they're in a lot of materials and so on. Synthetic clothing, that's something you can do. You can do something about that right away. You can have cotton clothing and get away from synthetic clothing and that kind of stuff.
That's so hard for us fashion divas.
Yeah, it is. But you guys have all these neat materials too. I mean, you have now I think they make a lot of stuff out of bamboo fiber, and it's not necessarily more expensive like silk or something, but it sure feels good. It feels like cotton or something, and so there's alternatives. You can slowly build your wardrobe or whatever. Yeah.
For sure. So I do have one question here. I'm going to post it. And so Anna is asking, if the root of our hormone imbalance is diet, would this supplement still help, or do we need to get to the root of the diet issue first?
I would say that you need the supplement. It's just like, why would we even take any supplements? And the reason why is even if you have a perfect diet, you still have these other influences that are in the environment. Also, a lot of times people think they're taking the perfect diet and it turns out they're not. So you can't just count on diet only. You really do need supplementation to give the body these really concentrated forms of nutrient, for your endocrine system, for your digestion, for your blood system, lungs, everything. So you really do need supplementation in addition to diet, but they go hand in hand. That's why I wanted to mention diet, because I think it's also an important aspect. I mean, I know we're not selling diet, but it's but it's a good thing. And so if you take the Rhythm and Sync and you have a good diet and you have a good daily routine of some kind, where you have a chance, a few minutes to have your yoga or your walk or whatever else you need to do to sort of round out your lifestyle, then I think you're going to do well. But the supplement is definitely an important part. You don't want to just throw that aside, depend only on diet. It's not the whole problem.
I've been recommending the 28-day reset that we have at Crrrazy. It's kind of a twist on like my twist on the Hippocrates diet, a little easier for people to do at home, but still teaching people about raw food, greens, the wheatgrass, and taking salt out. So I do have that challenge. If you guys have not tried the 28-day challenge, I definitely think you would enjoy that. I have daily emails that go out that will teach you. And, and it's 4 pillars. It's not just diet, but like you said, it's exercise, meditation, and then reflection. I think it's so important to reflect, to journal, and then, to really visualize where you want to see yourself. So it's the whole mind, body, and spirit health. But then, that supplementation is so important. Again, I was eating super clean, and still my hormones, got wacky, like eating a really clean diet. And it wasn't until I started speaking with you and taking the Rhythm and Sync that I saw the change in my thyroid levels, which was super encouraging. Another person I'd spoken to this weekend said she's 50 years old and has been taking the supplement for 10 days. She is premenopausal and has not been getting her period for about a year. And within 10 days, started getting her cycle and was just like, whoa, what is this supplement doing to me? So I don't know if there's a mix of like, she was kind of happy that she wasn't getting her cycle anymore, but then, the symptoms of her, premenopausal symptoms were awful. So she's having mood swings and kind of struggling with the hot flash issue. So can you maybe shed some light on how the Rhythm and Sync has come in and brought balance, and how moving forward, what Rhythm and Sync can do for her or anyone else that is trying our supplement, she's experiencing this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And sounds like she's right on the sort of like when you're 50. That's for some ladies, that's like on the borderline of menopause. So it could be that she was already on that borderline, and this is kind of like rejuvenating her, making a youth tonic. She probably doesn't want any more children. It sounds like she doesn't need any more kids. So it's kind of like maybe she went into sort of menopausal symptoms maybe before her time. It's hard to say. So this might be rejuvenating her, bringing her back a little bit. If she's disturbed by that, she could just, she could cycle off of that product for a while and pick it up at a later time. But if she's looking for specific relief of menopausal symptoms, then that should be working for her. Right. Again, if it's not, and she's kind of like on the border in between, and this might be somehow pulling her back or pushing her forward or whatever, it might be good for her to cycle off for a while. That's what I would say.
Okay. So what about periomenopause and breakthrough bleeding in the middle of a cycle? How can the Rhythm and Sync help with that?
Well, it should help just in general with all the symptoms and everything that has to do with the period. So, it just depends on what else is going on. I'm not sure, unless I give a diagnosis to the person, see what else is happening in their life, what to say about that exactly. But again, Rhythm and Sync is, in general, I mean, the kind of patients I had when I was in practice. I'm not in practice anymore because I'm doing formulations at this time. But when I was in practice, we had some ladies who were, this is premenopausal ladies, and they really just couldn't even go to work. It was just like they had to be in bed for 3 days,
right.
And couldn't take care of their kids. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that, and so they really liked the formula because it helped them be in balance. And it depends on how sensitive a person is, but these ladies, what I remember, they were quite sensitive, and they had almost all of them had a really good reaction to this, to the formula, in the sense that they were able to get up, act normal in terms of just getting their business done and taking care of their households and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Okay. So I have another
positive reactions. Again, if somebody's not sure, and there's like this lady that you mentioned who's sort of like on the edge of menopause, they can always just cycle off of that for a while and take it easy. And the other thing about diet is, if you're on kind of like an extreme diet, sometimes because I've been there. I mean, I'm vegetarian, and I've done those cleanses and things. So, sometimes if you're on a super clean diet and you sort of jump on a super clean diet, it stirs things up in the body because you'll detoxify very quickly, because the liver will detoxify, the kidneys, the gallbladder, you might lose stones, who knows what's going on. And things in the intestines will come out. So, it's good to, if you are going to have a clean diet, and they should follow your program, because I've seen your program. I think it looks very good, but it's kind of like they need to warm up to it. So, make a nice balanced transition,
Exactly.
And, that's it.
So I had another question here come up from Lynn, and she is asking, what about after menopause? Does the Rhythm and Sync have any benefits?
Well, some ladies take it just for hot flashes, just to reduce their hot flash symptoms and other things, And so the answer is yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's for premenopausal and postmenopausal women.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people were asking also about the Rhythm and Sync post labor. So that's the craziest time.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would let that settle down. You know, post labor, I would wait a month or so,
A
or
month or
two.
so?
Yeah,
Okay. That's
and then yeah, and then you know when everything's just kind of like uh, yeah back in place and
right, right. And
normalized, then they could start again like
so
after a
that
month.
will help like some of the postpartum symptoms, um,
Yes,
low energy. Um,
definitely.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely helps with mood as well. I mean, I've seen that happen.
Okay.
Like I said, some of these ladies that came to me in my practice, they were just like desperate, you know, and like they couldn't function, and so their mood was fine afterwards, and so that's all a part of their hormonal balancing, and that's what we want to do. We want them to have that experience.
And then even for, you think even for like say a teenager who gets really heavy periods, really uncomfortable periods, you know, a lot of times a doctor for that will prescribe birth control just to regulate,
Um,
you know, even though they're not sexually active.
yeah,
So
but
what are
they
your
do
thoughts there?
now. They do that as a hormonal treatment a lot of times. You're right. And you know, I have to say, I mean, from my side, being a you know an herbal practitioner and uh, you know holistic practitioner, you know, do what your physician tells you to do. I mean, that's
Right,
if
of course.
if you're going to take advice from your physician, you really should follow through. Um, but at the same time, you know, I think that a lot of these drugs they do the opposite of balancing; they imbalance you, and they're full of synthetics and God knows what. These days, it's just amazing what goes into things. I mean, if you look at the list of just it's in the vaccines that they're giving our children, it would be shocking to you if you don't already know about it. You know, if you can if you can avoid that problem and you know go with something natural, rhythm and sync, it's going to be good for the long term. Because what happens when you it's good for emergencies. So you know, I'm not anti-drug in that sense because if you look at um, people that have accidents, I mean, if I had a car accident, you know, and I'm in the hospital, give me the best you've got, you know, bring those drugs on. You know,
Right.
I want all of it. I want it all. But that's that's for the short term, you know. It's not. I'm not
Right.
talking about long term use of those things because if you have a long term use, you're just going to develop more uh, need for other drugs because those side effects always happen every time. It's just there's never a time that you don't get side effects
Right.
with long-term use of drugs because they are synthetic and it just imbalances the body.
Right.
But yeah, so I would say you know if you can go the natural route, that's the best way. Of course, that's what I would say.
Right. I know. Well, you
Yeah,
know, I think a lot of people aren't really talking about non-synthetic, like, and maybe they've heard it, but they don't understand
yeah,
that literally most of the supplements on the market are synthetic.
yeah,
Go in more detail about that because we're spending all of this money on supplementation,
yeah.
thinking that we're doing something good for ourselves, but in fact, we're causing more imbalances.
Exactly, exactly. So it doesn't make any sense to take a quote natural product. You know, it's like this term that they use, which is synthetic nutrient. Well, there's no such thing as a synthetic nutrient. There's either a nutrient or a non-nutrient. You know, it's
Mhm.
not a synthetic nutrient. That doesn't
Right,
exist.
right,
But we have these crazy terms that we use. Anyway, the idea is that yes, you're right. I mean, if you look at things that have the magnesium stearate in it, you know, they have synthetic forms of different actives, like even like with turmeric, you can find now they're just make it cheaper. They
mhm,
have synthetic curcumin, you know, and
yeah,
things like coleus, and they used to have ephedra, They still have ephedra, I think, in some products. And so you have to be careful. You have to have something that, and that's why we're doing what we're doing together on the Rhythm and Sync, having what we call the Pure tab, so that we don't have any of those extra synthetic ingredients in there, and using everything that is naturally occurring. So we use the word naturally occurring, and what we mean is that it's natural. You know, it's occurring from nature. It's not synthesized in a laboratory. So if you see that on the label, like even with vitamins, it's just crazy. But for 70 years, and we still haven't gotten over this, but for 70 years, we've been taking synthetic vitamins. Now, if I talk to somebody in a natural food store and I say, well, what are you asking me to throw all the stuff off my shelf or something? I said, no, not at all. I'm just saying, make available an alternative. That's all I'm saying. Make available the alternative. Let's enlighten the public. Let them know that there are a lot of synthetic things like synthetic vitamins, what they call USP, which means United States Pharmacopoeia, means that it's been tested, to have a certain synthetic potency that's based upon, human tests or animal tests. And so, if I get into this too much, we'll be getting away from the subject that we're.
Oh, I know. We could talk for hours. We could
talk for hours on this. And actually, I would like.
I can't take notes fast enough.
I would like to talk for hours on it, but
yes.
but that's true.
What could the average person do? That's like, say we go into one of the biggest food chains out there that's known for having clean products, and we walk into this big, beautiful store with a restaurant and and all of a sudden, like, our guard goes down, right? Because we're in this health food store that we all trust so much. And then we go over to the shelves and, in the body department, and we're looking at all these supplements that we can buy. And what's one to do, and what can they look for that would, what are markers to the consumer that they would know this is synthetic?
Right. There's a couple of ways. The main thing is to read the label. And that sounds simple, I know, but if you read the label, you can see that there's things on there like a vitamin, like say thiamine, which is B1. They might say thiamine HCl. Well, that means hydrochloric. So that means it's a synthetic. So, and if you ask the person who's in charge there, if they've been educated on naturally occurring, which usually they haven't, then they would know, but a lot of times they don't. So it's difficult. What I recommend is that we have a new standard. I'm actually working with people on right now on a nonprofit to set up a new standard called the naturally occurring standard. Now, your product, Rhythm and Sync, is certified naturally occurring. So you have that. I believe you do have that stamp on there. NOSG, we call it, Naturally Occurring Standards Group.
Yes.
So what we need to do is revamp the whole nutritional system, in my opinion, the whole industry. And one way to do that would be to bring in a citizen standard, not the RDA standard that we have now, which is based upon synthetic quantities of nutrients, but rather something that's private, that we can do studies on that show naturally occurring potencies of nutrients. And the nice thing about the naturally occurring potencies and the fact, like in your Rhythm and Sync, we're using extracts. We're not just using raw powders. There's a lot of companies that just use the raw powders, and they're not very powerful. But we use the extracts, and we can set up a standard. But that gets into, again, another few hours of ranting and raving on this.
It's just scary because you go in and it's like, I look at some of the top brands, Garden of Life, and I'm just, how does someone know, that you really have to know your stuff and know what to look for. So maybe that's another interview we do.
Let's do that. Let's do an interview where we show people how to read a label because I'd
Yeah,
love to do that.
let's do it. Yeah,
I think I think we definitely should do that. And like you said, even the top brands, they have synthetics in there, and it's like it's so funny. It's the people who are really in charge of the gatekeepers for all these nutrients and so on. They don't know that this is going on, and so the people that are like deep inside the industry that have been there for a long, long time, like myself, and people in the past, like you may have heard of somebody named Dr. Royal Lee. He was back in the 1950s.
no.
But there's a few people that have brought forward this information for a long time. Of course, Brian Clement at the and he's aware of that. And so there's some people that are aware, but we really need to educate the public. I think if we had a series on that, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I don't have any more questions here. I think this was a great chat on the Rhythm and Sync. Share your testimonies if you guys have purchased it and you're starting on it and you're already feeling better. I'm telling you, people are like, I don't know if it's in my head, but I've only been taking it for a few days, but I already feel better. I'm already feeling better. I think that's just the element that we talked about with the energy levels. So I do just encourage you guys to check out the Rhythm and Sync. We've all got hormones. We all need some balancing.
We all do.
So thank you, Dr. Scott, for being here with us at Cultivate. It was very informative as always, and I'm walking away learning more than I did coming in. So thank you for that.
Vanessa, it's really been a pleasure talking to you. I really like talking to you. So it's good.
You're awesome.
Good.
You're awesome. All right. Well, have a good night.
You too.
Bye, Cultivate Group. Love you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.